Okay, so this is my review for Everneath by Brodi Ashton, and this is somewhat a retelling of the Hades and Persephone myth, but it's got a bit of a twist on it, which is thankful. Hades and Persephone was an incredibly popular Greek myth to retell last year in young adult paranormal romances. We had Falling Under by Gwen Hayes, there was Abandoned by Meg Cabot, there was The Goddess Test by Amy Carter, and I'm sure there were some other titles that were around and about. Hades and Persephone is one of my favourite myths from Greek legend, but I think it's one of the most obvious ones to choose if you're going to do a retelling, so you've really got to impress me with some originality and intelligence in how you approach it, or otherwise I just feel like I'm reading fan fiction that I could read anywhere and for free. So I was very hesitant going into this book, but I mean it still followed some of the tropes that would come, I guess, in addressing that myth and in just doing paranormal romance in young adult, but it wasn't too bad. I think I would give it a solid 3 stars out of 5. I was impressed with some of the original mythology that was worked into it, and the fact that yeah, I mean there's a little bit of there's just a slightly original mythology that's just unique to this story that's brought into it, I guess. Instead of necessarily having the underworld, we've got the Everneath, which is, I think, meant to be depicted as a portal between life and death, so it's not necessarily the underworld where, you know, deceased spirits go to rest and whatnot. It's kind of the in-between, kind of the purgatory between these two things. So ever-livings are beings that require the souls of humans to feed them, so but they can assume human form, so I think it's every 100 years they have to get a sacrifice and bring them on down to the Everneath, and they've got to feed one another for the next 100 years or something like that. The actual details were a bit murky at times, so I was trying to work out what exactly goes on and when and how. I didn't think that was all that clear at different points, especially since the majority of the Everneath section of this story is actually told in flashback. So what's interesting is that our protagonist Nikki doesn't spend the majority of the present day plot line in the Everneath. She's back home in normal human land, and everything else is told as flashbacks. So she's already been to the Everneath, and that stuff's already gone down. There's a ticking clock element going on because she's going to have to return to the Everneath, potentially. I won't reveal why. But, yeah, so that's kind of hanging over and adds a bit of tension to things. But, yeah, for the most part, we're spending time with Nikki. She's back on Earth. She's trying to rebuild relationships and stuff that have broken down, even though she only has 6 months to do so, so not too much time anyway. And of course, when she left everybody, it left a heap of confusion. People think she was in rehab, relationships broke down, she doesn't know how to talk to her estranged father anymore, she broke up with her boyfriend just before leaving, so now she's got to try and sort that stuff out. And for the, like, you know, to an extent I was kind of interested in how she was going to go about that and how she'd make peace with things before having to return to this Everneath existence, which sounds suck-ass. But like I usually am, I'm more interested in seeing other relationships being delved into, so I wanted to see what was going to go on with her family, I wanted to see what would happen with her old friends and stuff, but as expected, the focus was on her relationship with her ex-boyfriend, and if she was going to kick that back up, and really Nikki's concerns were always about, gotta find his name, finding his name, Jack. She was just mainly concerned about how he was feeling, and did he want her back in his life, and had he missed her, and all this kind of thing. And the focus on that was really tedious for me. There's a love triangle element, as you would assume, with Cole, who's the ever-living creature who stole Nikki away and got her to live with him for 100 years down there. I should say, I think 100 years equates to 6 months Earth time. I think that's the comparison thing. Anywho's, yeah, so she was with Cole for all that time, and now he's like, I want you back and stuff, and she doesn't think any of his feelings are genuine, which was also a bit of a twist there, because she spent most of the book not really falling for it, because she didn't believe in the sincerity of anything Cole was saying. She just assumed he needs her for soul food or whatever. So that was a little bit different in that she never really considered Cole as, you know, another viable romantic option, which was nice. The triangle thing still, it wasn't too heavy-handed actually, because, I guess because of that, she wasn't really tempted romantically there. Still the focus on her and Jack got on my nerves a little bit. No one's necessarily a bad or unlikable character in this book, which was interesting. I mean, Nikki as a protagonist, her voice dragged on me a little bit at times, but even in the two guys, Cole was irritating because he was just showing up all the time when you didn't want him there, and he was selfish and could be a bit douchebaggy, but he wasn't too bad really in comparison to other characters that fall into his archetype there. I've certainly encountered far worse. And Jack as a guy wasn't that awful either. Sometimes he was a bit possessive and, you know, just did the kind of things and said the sort of things that I think are meant to make girls swoon, and really I'm just like, that's borderline abusive. I don't care too much for that, Mr. Jack. But overall, no one was too bad, so I wasn't feeling sickened by the characters or even really the relationship dynamics in the book, which was refreshing and a nice change for once. And yeah, just the fact that the mythology was a little bit different was interesting. They bring in different Greek myths into discussion as well, because Nikki's turning to her English teacher a lot for help and guidance, and her English teacher is obsessed with Greek mythology. So a few other myths are brought into play there. The Daughters of Persephone is a big thing that's discussed, and I'm going to go look that up, I think, because it's now piqued my curiosity, because it's also mentioned in another book I just finished, so I'm like, what's doing with this? What's doing with this? So yeah, I might go look that up a little bit. But I mean, I am curious to see where the next novel takes us, because it ends on, not a cliffhanger, but there's some foreboding there going on. And I'm curious, I would like to go into the Everneath and see what's actually doing there, and I want some more information about these creatures and how things function and stuff. And I'd rather the focus be on that than on a potential love triangle, which I think is actually going to be solidified in future books, because of course Cole's feelings are going to be genuine. And I don't care about that. I'd like to see more of the mythology and see what happens there. But I mean, it was interesting enough, and you know, I kept on reading it. So yeah, if you are interested in Greek retellings, or you just like your paranormal romances and stuff, or you're just, as many are, you love pretty covers, it's very popular to have like a girl's like torso and a dress. It's a really popular cover trend, and it has been for a few years now, and I'm just wondering, I mean, the dress is very nice and all, but can't people think of more inventive ways to do covers? I don't know, it's just like ever since Fallen, really, it's just been very popular to see a girl in a dress, and usually cut her head off, or have her head to the side, and you just, I don't know. Can anyone explain the allure of that kind of cover design to me? Anyway, yeah, so I will give Everneath by Brodi Ashton 3 stars out of 5, and I will probably continue with the series just to see where it goes. But if they love triangle it up too much for me, I'm giving it up readily. So yeah, that's Everneath.